my background, I've been in tech sales for, over and leadership, for almost 15, well, I guess almost 15 years.
Yeah.
And what my background as a vice president of sales at Glassdoor, VP of sales at a few other startups, and started my own firm in 2013, really with this idea that most organizations needed help and support as they grew and scaled. That, a lot of our early clients were growth stage technology companies. They're scaling and different things break as you go along. And then, lately, we work with a lot of larger companies too, Fortune 500 companies. I've actually spent a lot of time in Ireland last year with LinkedIn, who's one of our big clients.
Brilliant.
And, we really are best when a company is saying, look, we need to build out processes or structure, or we need tactical support around this, and we don't have the, tactical expertise to pull it through. And so we're partnering with sales leadership, partnering with CEOs, partnering with frontline leaders to really optimize components of their lead generation, sales, or account growth process. And a lot of that lately, especially around lead generation, has been around LinkedIn. That I firmly believe if you are a B2B company, and candidly, even if you sell to consumers, I think there's a play that a big part of your whole go-to-market plan should be around LinkedIn. I think it's just too wide open. So that's my thing. And also I want to give a shout out, my family came over from Northern Ireland, right? So I've got a lot of Irish roots as well too. So
Fantastic.
if the
Perfect.
Dunlap doesn't throw it off for you.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, there has to be some sort of connection here. So, listen, next time you're over, we'll grab a pint of Guinness somewhere.
That's right. And Strabane, if you know where that is.
Yeah, Strabane.
Stra-
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
John Dunlap.
John Dunlop. Yeah, that's not too far from where I am. It's about 30, 40 miles away. Wow, interesting. Yeah, it's such a
Well,
small
there you go.
country.
Back in, I think it was like 1750. I'm like an ninth generation American.
Wow, perfect. And now you've conquered. You've conquered it.
Something like that.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit more then, Jake, about how you got into selling. Because I mean, it's very impressive to hear you have been vice president of sales for Glassdoor. You've been working with LinkedIn. This just doesn't happen by accident. There's obviously been a bit of hard graft, a bit of hard work put in there somewhere. So tell us a little bit more how you got into selling initially.
Yeah, sure, man. I love that. So, look, guys, I grew up, in the Midwest, which, in a 900 person town in Iowa is where I was born. Actually, that's where the hospital was. The town I lived in, I don't even know. Maybe it was like 100 people, right? So I grew up in the Midwest, moved to Kansas City when I was 7, went to college in Missouri at Missouri State University, which is like the second largest school in Missouri. And for me, what happened is in college, I got into telemarketing, and it was a place where you could go, you could make money, right? And so I did sales in college. I waited tables, I did telemarketing, and what ended up happening is, and then when you get into the real world, right? And I was getting ready to graduate, I was like, well, okay, I want to get into sports, so I got a sports management major. By the way, it took me 5.5 years, and I graduated with a 2.9 GPA. So let's just throw that out there,
Wow.
right? Which I don't know what the equivalent is from a uni standpoint in Northern Ireland, but like that's not world beating, right? Like
Yeah.
I wasn't going to like it was okay. But I realized like I'm good at this. Like, I didn't know why necessarily. I think the number one reason I knew that I was good at sales, I didn't give a shit. I'm okay getting out of my comfort zone, and I can push people.
Yeah.
Like look, they're on the other end of a phone. What do I care? I'm never going to talk to John Smith in rural Pennsylvania ever again. Like, who cares? Just go for it. And so I think I had a lot of that attitude, right? I've always, if you ask my mom, like I've always challenged authority. So I feel like, that way when I graduated school, I destroyed everyone else because I'd already done it. I'd already been in sales, and these guys were doing group ticket sales. I worked in Major League Baseball as my first job with a team in Tampa called the Rays. And, this kids that went to Princeton, I massacred these kids because I'd already done it. I'd had to make 100 something cold calls in 3 hours in a night. You know what I'm saying? Like I had the callus and the muscle built up. And then, I was really fortunate in my first job too. There was a guy who was older. I was 23 at the time. He was 28, 29. And he was a really avid reader. He was changing industries, et cetera. He wanted to move from banking to sales and sports. And, he started to turn, I used to like to read when I was a kid, but I kind of got away from it.
Yeah. As you
So he
do.
started to turn me on to all these marketing and sales books. I started reading them. And I'm like, oh man, this is cool. And then I started applying those techniques. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, well, let's just do that. Right. So, you know, you know, I was a student of the game that I knew that, look, I was 23. I'm grinding. It's not about where I'm going to be at 23, how much money I'm going to have when I'm 23. My first year out of university, my gross take home pay, and let me try to put this in euro standpoint. In euros would have been 11,000 euros gross. I'm sorry, net. That's what I took home. My gross was 21,000 USD. So like my first job, I was making 16,000 euros net, right? Or
Yeah,
gross,
I've been
right?
there. I hear you, man.
So, but I didn't give a shit. Man, I was eating frozen dinners in Largo, Florida. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about 24-year-old Jake. I'm thinking about 27-year-old Jake. So you've got to invest early on in your career, in your skill set and your production and your abilities, and then they pay off longer. Look, I was, and then I went to Career Builder, and with Career Builder, they already had leadership development programs. They had programs. And so I took advantage of all of that. I got them to pay for my MBA 100%,
Wow.
right? I got them to put me into their executive leadership program at the age of 28.
Amazing.
And then what happened, and then I realized, look, I had been in the same leadership role for 2.5 years. I was the number one team 2 years in a row during the last recession, like selling jobs. But my team, we focused on business acumen, right? I would take my teams to go tour businesses so they knew more what those people were going through, so then they could sell to them more effectively, right? And I invested in my team and their skill sets. Because I realized, again, I just took these techniques I learned from my leadership and from reading books. They said, Jake, this is how you should manage people. I said, okay, fine. Like, wow, what do I know? Right. And I just did it. I just did what they told me to do. Right. And I learned that a lot. Like, don't try to reinvent the wheel 24/7. Just take all these best practices and make it your own.
Yeah. People have did it.
And
People have did it.
so, yeah. And then what happened is I realized, look, I'd been in that role for 2.5 years, on pace for another successful year. And I was like, dude, what's the next step up? Okay, this leadership position. Okay, is that really going to get me what I need? But when I realized, like, look, how I was 28, 29 at the time, somewhere in there, 28. And I was like, how am I going to lead a grown ass man or woman, right? Like someone who's like 50,
Yeah.
if I haven't done enterprise sales. And so I transferred from Phoenix to San Francisco, went back into the field, right? Got promoted within the first 6 months to a national account executive. There's 75 national account executives. I was the youngest national account executive at 29. And I was selling to companies like Intel, Safeway, he's one of the largest grocery chains here in the US, and the largest private healthcare system in California at the time. And it was student. I'm investing in myself. I'm getting better. I'm trying new techniques. I'm not resting. And then that's how I got to be, the head of sales at Glassdoor when I was 30 and VP by when I was 31. And it's because I invested in myself. And it's okay. Look, if you're 35 or you're 40 or you're 45 and you're hearing this, it doesn't matter. You still have, if you're 45, you've got 20 years of work ahead of you. Easy. So you can start this right now. You're doing it right now by listening to this podcast. So I think a lot of people don't spend enough time investing in, just like a 401k or an investment, whatever it pays, it's compounding interest. Once you learn something and get to a certain tier, you don't go back. It only builds on itself. So that's been my mantra for my life, and why, you prepare. Like, look, when Glassdoor came knocking, I want you to think about this. Like, I had been a successful sales leader. I'd proven I could do enterprise sales, and I literally just finished my MBA like a year and a half ago. I got a 2.9 GPA. It took me 5.5 years to graduate undergrad. Right. And had I not prepared, I never would have got the opportunity. Too many people think they get picked and then they get taught how to do something. No, I was preparing to be a director or VP for them to jump. You think as a sales manager, I needed an MBA? No. And I didn't do it for a piece of paper. I went back to learn, because when I went back to school, I actually gave a shit and I wanted to learn stuff versus, college, you're just trying to, uni, you're just trying to get a degree.
Yep.
So I feel like you've got to prepare for the next opportunity or the next opportunity today. And it might seem, why am I investing in these skills now? It's because when opportunity comes, you need to be ready.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in there, that I would certainly touch on. The key one, Jake, being mindset. Mindset is everything, I believe, in life, in your choices, in your career, and especially in sales. you've obviously got a complete growth mindset. You just want to grow. There's people out there who go into sales jobs and they're just happy taking a salary. They're happy working the commission, and that's it. And they go home and they forget about the job
That's
and they
right.
go home. But then there's guys probably like me and you that it doesn't just stop at half five, 5 p.m. It continues for maybe another 4 or 5 hours after work because you're going home, you're sitting on LinkedIn, you're looking at prospects, you're going home, you're reading a new book, you're listening to a podcast, you're looking at a career
That's right.
pathway, for you for growth. I think sales is a fantastic career, and I think sales gets a bad rap sometimes in terms of, don't get me wrong, Wolf of Wall Street, great film, but painted salespeople to just be complete dirt of the world, absolute filthy animals. It didn't work out too well for us, you know. So what's your views then on the sales profession, and people's perception of the sales profession at the minute?
Sure. Well, I mean, sales by nature, right? I want to separate. If you guys, sales is not giving information. Okay, I want to be very clear here.
Yep.
If you want to give information, I'm going to pay you nothing, and I'm going to put a headset on you and I'm going to put you in a call center.
Mm-hmm.
Sales people are paid to make people take action or to guide them or remove barriers or whatever other things. I'm not. Let's call it what it is, though.
Yep.
Like, I'm not trying to make more friends here. Like, I look, if we become friends in the process, fantastic. I'm trying to help your business.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think I can help, great. I'm going to tell you I think I can help, and here's how. If I can't, I'm going to tell you why I think I can't, and here's how, and here's why. So I think it's just a part of the nature is good salespeople make you uncomfortable, and so people don't make a decision if everything's fine. So I don't know. I think that what Wolf of Wall Street just highlights certain tactics that are like like that are exploiting, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a line, but also there's a line, right, of like legal, illegal, the black, white, gray, like what is the gray versus black or white, you know what I'm saying? So my thought is this, man, like I also don't want to get it twisted that guys, your job is to make shit happen. It's not to give someone or do a demo or I'm being consultative so I can position something in a way that they can understand it, assuming that there's a fit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my number one piece of advice here is like, it's a mix. Yes, don't go that far, but that's why salespeople have this reputation is it's our job to make people slightly uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I believe that the media and unethical sales professionals give people a bad taste, leave people with a bad taste in their mouths about the sales profession. There's a lot of young guys that I know that I talk to, and some that I coach, and they're like, yeah. I want to be like the Wolf of Wall Street. I want to be like Jordan Belfort. I want to sell. I want to, that's great. Channel that energy into selling ethically, but don't channel it into conning people, and taking their money when the product maybe isn't right for them, or conning businesses when the product isn't right for them. So yeah, the whole unethical sales side of things really gets to me. And
yeah.
it's good to get your sort of side on it
Yeah, I
as
mean,
well.
like, look, those are techniques. I think the key to understand, like, there are techniques that you see that are okay, like how to use a pause, right? Well, if you watch Wolf of Wall Street, like they show you how to use a pause,
Yeah.
how to be assumptive. Those things are fine. Again, it's just it's like, are you preying on someone or are you using what to position something to make it easier to make a buying decision? So again, I'm somewhere in between. I grew up hustling my ass off cold calling people. So
Me too.
for me, I definitely know what that line looks like. And, I think it's important for people to understand that I look at that and there are actually, if you watch that movie, there's some really good techniques about pausing, about being assumptive, that if I was a seller, I would be taking notes and then just understanding what's the line, right? So
Yeah, and I think people see the lifestyle in these media portrayals, and they're like, yeah, I want that lifestyle, but it's a lot harder than what people think. The sales industry is up there with one of the most stressful jobs with doctors, teachers. it's really, really stressful. But you work hard and you play hard as well. So you've got that fine balance of, trying to keep the job going, trying to do it ethically, trying to have a good mental health so that you can do the best that you can. And then all of the rewards, they come: the nice car, the house, the nice lifestyle. So it is genuinely a good career to get into if people can. And most people accidentally fall into sales. I don't know. You chose to go into sales. You chose to go and work in telemarketing because it was good. Did you see that? Did you foresee back then that you would have this whole career, in sales? Did you think you were going to stay in sales?
Hmm. Uh, I'm trying to think here. Like I liked it. Yeah. I mean, I think I liked it. The more that I learned the psychology behind things and why things happened, yeah. I mean, I think I didn't know out of university, but I think within my first year and a half, 2 years in sales, yeah, I knew.
Yeah,
I was like, I
perfect.
like this.
And you're probably one of very few people that I've spoken to that kind of went, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have a bash at this. Most people, and I'm sure you're the same yourself, Jake. If you speak to many people, oh yeah, I just kind of fell into sales and I've just been here ever since.
Then fucking quit. Go find something else. Like if you're
yeah,
not going to be a student of the game, well, go find a game that you want to be the student of.
yeah,
Like that would be my advice. Like um, there's just absolutely no reason. Like
yeah,
don't. I get it. You're addicted to the money. Like the saddest thing on the planet for me, saddest. I mean, that I shouldn't say that in the professional sales world. Saddest thing is when I talk to VPs of sales, and these guys are up there, and you're like, sad, Jake. What do you mean? These guys are probably making, again, I'm trying to translate in euros, 200,000, 300,000 plus euros, 400,000, half a million. Um, but what the problem is they also learn how to spend all that money, and
yeah,
their kids are in private school. They buy a second house, and then they go from sales job to sales job, and they're miserable. They want to
yeah,
quit, but they
yeah,
built a lifestyle. And that's, that is the saddest thing, is that salespeople, when they build a lifestyle that can only be supported by making, let's say you're an individual rep and you're making 80 or 100 or 150, as opposed to like, what, I'm going to change careers. And for the next 3 years, I'm going to go back to just like when I started sales, making 40,000 or 50 or 60,000. And I can do that because I've built a smart lifestyle, and then go do something that I love,
yeah, yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's strange. I had a friend recently. He'd it was a byproduct of what's happening at the minute, COVID-19, and the recession that people don't seem to admit that we're going into at the minute. But he's basically a byproduct of that, and he's jobless at the minute, and he's a sales guy, and he's out, and he's fair play to him. He's took a part-time job doing food delivery, for a big supermarket chain. But I was speaking to him, and he's like, yeah, I kind of took like a 60% pay cut, you know. So at the same time, I would say what's actually happening now, a lot of people are realizing as well how much they rely on the sales industry, how much they rely on the sales profession, because if you're really good at it, it does pay well. And when that tap is turned off, that tap of money is turned off all of a sudden, like, oh shit, where do I go now? What do I do? So yeah, it's interesting to get your views on that. So what I would like to ask you now, Jake, is what would be your top three tips for sales professionals to sell better?
Well, we talked about one, which is invest in yourself
Yeah.
and always be, and kind of in the kin to that then is, and always be experimenting. Once you get a baseline, of like, okay, this is how I do my discovery. This is how I do then that's when it's time to iterate. You get your baseline on 20, 30, 40 calls, you kind of understand. And now you're like, okay, well, let me try to switch up the discovery a little bit this way. Okay. Hey, I got more information that kind of worked. Let me try to push a little bit more on this part. Right. So you got to learn new techniques, and you always got to be trying new things. I think it's really easy. And then that's where after a lot of people, they get in that demo mindset, where I could literally hit copy and paste in your demo and you're just mailing it in.
Yeah.
It's because you're not trying new things. You're not experimenting. You're not listening. You're not actively there. That maybe that's my second one, which is that idea of active listening. It might be that 200 times you've done it, it's the first time they're hearing it. And if you're not bringing that A game, if you're not bringing 100%, they're not gonna be into it either. If you're just mailing it in. So, I think that those are a couple things, right? So, invest in yourself, try so then you can do that to try and experiment and do different things. Two, make sure that you're actively listening, you're engaged, you're showing up. And as a part of that, prepare, man. Salespeople, stop being lazy. Show up for the meeting prepared. Look at their website. If you can't answer the question, how does this company make money? You cannot help the company, period. If I don't know how you make money, how do I know to tie what I do to how you make money? So you've got to do that prep, that active listening, and that discovery process. So that's kind of my step. The discovery process, just so everyone knows, is the most important part. That first meeting or second meeting helps you understand who needs to be involved so you can drive action, lets you know how serious they are. Is this a pain? Is this not? Right? There's so much that happens in that meeting that whenever companies come to us and ask for consulting around closing or rejection or rebuttals and all that, I'm like, okay, cool. We need to go fix your discovery process. They're like, no, our discovery process is good. I'm like, no. You're not asking the right questions, and that's why you're getting objections later in the process, right? You're not asking the tough questions, which is why deals are falling off later, because you're mistaking a fact for a pain. The fact is I need to hire 25 software engineers. That's not a pain. I got to ask 3 or 4 layered questions. Okay, well, tell me more. Why now? What's happening in the business? What happens if you don't? Right? Like, then I see, is this a pain? Or like, actually, Jake, you know what? I've got 23 already in the pipeline. But if you don't ask that layered question, you're like, they need to hire 25, software engineers. I can help. So you got to, that discovery process, that's my second tip. You got to go deep. You really got to be that consultant, that someone who digs in and understands their business, does their prep work, etc. Let's see. Third piece of advice. Never, this is a decision I made when I was 26, and I don't remember the exact call, but I remember the exact moment. We all get to that end of the call. Then you hear this. Yeah, Kenny. Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, Kenny, this is great. I mean, I'm sure in Northern Ireland, it's something different, right? It's like, I won't try to do. I don't know how to do a Northern Irish accent. It would be a travesty. But you hear, the tone. Every salesperson knows what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter, man. That yeah. Okay, well, this is cool. Can you send me some information? And yeah. I'd love for you to send that over, and I'll take a quick look at it. And you don't confront it. You hear it, and then you wimp out. And that's what happened to me after a call. It's like, I am never going to hang up the phone, like knowing that I should have pushed or made that person a little uncomfortable, versus me now being like, Jake, why'd you wimp out? Yeah. And anytime someone says, and this is just for all you sellers, anytime someone says, this is interesting, send me information, they are not interested. That is a polite way to say F off. Yeah. And you've got to realize that. You've got to confront it. You've got to say, hey, you know what, Kenny? Hey, look, I totally get it. I'm happy. Usually, tell me where your head's at. We talked a little price, or we talked this, like, are we in the right ballpark? Like, I hear a little bit of hesitation. So just tell me what you're thinking. If you don't have that motor, that ability to get uncomfortable, you will never be successful at sales. Yeah, totally agree. And so that's my tips, right? So let me try to summarize the tips here. It was invest in yourself, master that discovery process, go deep, prep, active listen, etc. And then don't be afraid to get uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to do that, so you're not beating yourself up, as a part of it.
Yeah, certainly. I would totally agree with a lot of that. The discovery process, particularly, I'm very, very, very much a fan of, without the discovery process, without the prospecting process, your sales cycle or your sales process, your funnel, all of that is basically dead. It doesn't exist.
You just don't know. You don't know how real it is, right? That's a lot of it. You got the pipeline, but like, you don't know how real it is.
Yeah. So in terms of, let's say prospecting, you've been there before. I've been there before. I've sat on a dialer system. I've made 300 calls in a day, 500 calls in a day, all KPI driven sales. Had someone breathing down my neck. So we would be quite versed and quite well prepared. If someone sat down and says, "Go make 100 calls," but yeah, no problem. That's a good challenge. Let's do it. But I know that there's a lot of sales guys, especially the younger generation. What I'm finding, Jake, is that the younger generation are afraid to pick the phone up. They're literally, like, they will sit and they will procrastinate over LinkedIn. The sales manager will come down. Yeah, we're going to make some of these calls. Okay, yeah. I'm going to do some research on the guys first. I'm just going to go on LinkedIn. I'm going to get all the information, and then I'm going to call them. And that maybe takes half the day. Then the sales manager comes back and is like, Why haven't you been on any calls? Oh yeah, I've been doing this. So the younger generation seem to think that this is part of the sales process now, and it kind of is.
It is.
But
Yeah.
they're using it as an excuse to not pick up the phone. And they're yeah, I'll just send them an email. Anything to get out of a phone call. So
Right.
let's talk about prospecting and the telephone. How can sales professionals just get over the fear of this? How can they just bite the bullet and start calling?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of takes to get over the hurdle. You kind of need someone to push you a little bit. So I think the bigger problem, I don't know why we're bringing the reps. It's the leaders. They work for you. Like, like chances are there's a high likelihood. What I think the actual problem is, Kenny, I don't think leaders take the time to explain why. Show them the data. Show them that it works. Show them why. We're human beings. We like to know the why.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think most leaders just say, just call because that's what you're supposed to do. And it's lazy.
yeah,
So I think step one is it starts with leadership. The leadership's got to do a better job of explaining why and the impact. Bring in people, bring in sales leaders or sales reps from other teams that are calling to your team, right? From other companies.
yeah,
Have them talk about what's working, what's not working. Don't just make it all about because I said so. Have some EQ, have some emotional intelligence on like how to drive change. It's a sales process, right? Like I got to get you to move and get you to get uncomfortable, right? So that's kind of my first advice. The second advice is it's all about the data. If you can get there without making calls, fantastic. Let's do it your way for the first month.
yeah,
Okay. Let's see how it works. Right. If not, and again, am I training you how to make calls? Are we role playing? Are we doing these things to where you're set up for success to where maybe you feel a little nervous, but that's normal. It's normal.
yep.
It's normal to feel nervous. And when I cold call still, do you get
Yeah,
that little feeling in your stomach? But guess what? By call 10, it starts to go away.
yeah,
So you just got to be okay with it. That's what you're signing up for. Go leave the job now, right? Like if you can't talk to the people now, how are you going to close deals, right? Like that's all talking to people. So, my advice is that, if you are an individual contributor, it's all about the data. And so for me, all I care about is winning. I only care about what works. I don't care if you use LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, the grinder. I don't give a shit what you use,
yeah,
right? It's all about what works for you. And I am telling you right now, the teams that are cold calling are killing it because and I was talking to somebody about this maybe on a podcast earlier this week. I've got less calls in the last 8 weeks than what I probably would normally get in the past, like in like a 2-week period or maybe 1-week period. Nobody's picking up the phone. It is so wide open. And guess what? Here's what I want you to do, my friends. Reach out to them, connect with them on LinkedIn first,
yeah,
then maybe drop a comment on a post and then cold call. Here's what I think is okay. I'm okay that maybe now, whether it's via email or LinkedIn, the first touch point, at least to get in their ether, maybe isn't a cold call. I'm okay with that. There's certain industries, small and medium businesses, where that's not the case. The only way you're going to get them is on the phone.
yeah,
But in other industries, let's say it's like 70% of industries, I'm okay that the first touch point is LinkedIn or that. But why not just follow up on the phone? I just don't, and again, yes, you're going to suck for your first 500 cold calls. You're going, right? Like it just is what it is.
yeah,
And then you're going to get over it and you'll get better, just like riding a bike.
yeah,
So that's it. It's like test, test, test. I'm telling you right now, there are lots of teams that are out there really doing, I'm talking mid-market enterprise. I'm not just talking transactional sales. Bigger teams, they're doing really, really, really well on calls. So that's my advice. It's just another arrow in your quiver. And why do you care? It's whatever works. Email, call, LinkedIn, TikTok, it doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of it's a bit of a bugbear for mine. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my platform. LinkedIn is where my success has been for the last 6 years. I have to give all credit to LinkedIn for helping me with that and giving me the platform to do that. But there's a lot of guys out there who are trainers who are, we're not going to state anybody, but they like to say that there's social selling. Social selling is the way forward. Social selling is it's marketing. It's not social selling. It's social marketing, in my opinion. And all you're doing is you're dropping content. You're engaging with people, and then the missing link is what you said, Jake. The missing link is pick the phone up. So a lot of guys will post content, and this is what I've seen from people that I've been working around and whatnot. They post content, they get lots of likes, and then they rave about, oh yeah, I've got loads and loads of likes. It's like, have those likes converted to sales? Have those people
You got
bought
to
off you?
mind the likes. So that goes back to it, man. The answer is you should be doing this stuff. I'm okay with what you're calling social marketing. Now, what are you going to do with it? And the key is like, guys, all I'm saying is play it with LinkedIn, play it a little slow. If you just play it a little slow, guess what? Most email and sequences still take, email and call sequences still take a couple weeks, right? To convert someone to a meeting.
Hmm.
Well, what about on LinkedIn? I connect with you. I comment on one of your posts. That's day one, day two, right? Then day five, I go back and look. I like one of your comments on a different post. It's day six, day seven. Then I cold call you. Hey, John, I've really enjoyed the content. What do you think? Like it sounds like you do this. It could be interesting. I'm not sure. Either way, just want to let you know I enjoyed the content and let me know if this is something that's top of mind. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Right?
Simple.
That's it.
Simple.
That's simple. Well, guess what? We're still the same days away, ahead. And that's the other thing too. Guess what? You need to be adding more of your buyers. There's a very high likelihood most of your audience on LinkedIn is your friends,
Yeah.
current colleagues, and previous colleagues. You guys need to be using Sales Navigator to add 100 plus buyers to your network every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then they are the ones seeing your content. What do if you want to just be famous in the salespeople world, go sell a sales technology. Go sell a process or something that sells to salespeople. Look, I run a sales and marketing consulting company. So of course I talk about sales and marketing. If I sold into manufacturing, I would never talk about sales and marketing. I love it. I'm passionate about it. Maybe I would still like mix in some posts here or there, a couple just for fun. But I would only talk about IoT's disruption of industrial manufacturing. I would talk about real boring shit
Yeah.
because that's my audience. I'm not out here trying to be LinkedIn famous. I'm trying to like build audience and build legacy and like help people along the way. And guess what? It equals a shit ton of, we closed millions of dollars last year in business from LinkedIn. And it's because we're also activating it. Guess what? We've got a bot now. Like there's different like bots and different things. We've got a person / bot where everyone who likes my posts, we scrape you. And if you comment, we scrape you. And if you're a VP of sales, you better believe you're getting a DM.
Yeah.
So it's a mix. But if you look at the content I put out, I never ask. I very, 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 very rarely ask. It's all value, 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 value.
Yeah.
But it's okay to have an ask here or there.
Yeah.
So that's it. You got to figure that out.
And I think it's one of the guys I've had another guy on before on this podcast. So I think he mentioned he does a 70-20-10. So 70% education, 20% industry specific, and then 10% selling. So I don't know if that's maybe beneficial for anybody listening to this, but I tend to follow that format as well. It's just all education. It's all helping people. And again, anybody who likes the content, you know, straight, I go on, I look at the likes, I straight onto the profile, I'll look at their content, I'll like some stuff, and then I'll pick the phone up and I'll make. And that's only something I started to do in the last 3 years. Before the last 3 years, I didn't understand how to use LinkedIn. I wasn't aware that there was a process. I thought if I just put
Same here,
content up,
man. Dude, I mean, like, look, I'll share my story real quick with everyone. Up until 2018, first 5 years of running my company. Now, granted, I'll also say LinkedIn wasn't meant for this shit either, right? LinkedIn was a place where we went to look for jobs, so it's a little bit different. So, the first 5 years of my company, I was producing white papers, blogs, sharing them. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm a CEO, right? That's what I'm supposed to do. It's what, you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I started to realize nobody gives a shit about my company. They care about me and my voice. And I was like, oh, so I'm just going to start posting content and not directing everything. And Skaled is doing this. And I thought, again, it was so counterintuitive to me because, again, I'm in sales. I'm like, what do you mean there's not a call to action? I'm not here trying to,
yeah.
make friends and stuff. I'm like, so that's how I would think about this. At least for me, that was my big takeaway is I was like, oh, this is just how this game is played on this platform. So that would be, something to think about, if I think for a lot of you out there that this is about building audience that now is going to reap a shit ton of rewards in month 3, 4, 5, 6, where you're going to be generating 3 to 5 meetings a month just from inbound and basic outreach on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And again, it's time. It's not time consuming, but it's time sensitive. you can't, again, people rave about this all the time on the platform. You can't just connect with someone and sell to them straight away. It's like, if we go back to what you said, you've got those touch points, you've got those sequences that you have to follow. And that's just general LinkedIn etiquette. So you've got to follow that. So hopefully, this has been useful, and a couple of guys that listen to this will pick this up. And instead of just waiting on the sales coming to them from the likes, they'll change their mindset. They'll get their asses in the gear, and they'll pick the phone up to the people liking and engaging with their content. Because I can guarantee you, half of the people don't ever get a phone call, and they'll be very surprised. And they'll be like, this guy
That's
actually
it.
is interested in me.
Too many people have an or mindset. It's an and mindset. You're going to do this and this and this.
Correct. Combination prospecting.
That's right. Why wouldn't you? And then I just look at what's working, what's not working, all that stuff.
So moving on, Jake, I want to ask you your top challenges that you have faced in your career, and maybe also that you're seeing now.
Top challenges in career. For me, the obvious one for me is politics. Like, I'm not very good at interoffice politics. And I think one thing you have to get good at as you rise the ranks is getting good at just like working well with other departments. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes in sales, we think we're like God's gift, right? We're like, well, we're bringing in the revenue. And that's just not the case, right? There's other groups that are working really hard. So that would be my advice. I would really, recommend that people, take the time to like basically like work on that, make sure that you go and understand what accounting does and finance and product and all those folks. Right. Yeah. So that's one. I think that's a challenge that you can actively. Two is mentorship. It's another thing I don't think I did enough of early on, that I think, if you get, and again, I talk a lot about my own personal development, right? But I did a lot of that myself. And like, I guess, I had mentors here or there, but I think, go find 2 or 3 people that are 2 steps ahead of where you want to be. So you can kind of reverse engineer some of the hurdles that they had or didn't have. So that would be kind of another, area of opportunity, I think, that I learned. And then the final is, I think as salespeople, we like to just get in and do stuff. And I think as I get older and, I'm running a company now, I've got, 25 people that depend on me, for everything, their pay and the work, et cetera, that operations and having a more logical mind to say, you know what, instead of just moving straight to solving a problem. I think in salespeople, our default is like, oh, what'd you say? Oh yeah, cool. Like, here, let me help you solve it. As opposed to like really digging in and hey, I'm going to spend a whole day just building out, standard operating procedures. It's something that it took me a long time to find some amount of not, pulling teeth out of. And so I think like being more deliberate and operational, moving a little slower, so then you can run forward, and it might make you a little slower in the first 6 weeks, but then you're sprinting in week 12 as opposed to plodding along. So I think that's it. Continue to be more operational. Look at I'll tell like a quick story, and I know we've got to wrap here soon. Yeah. I'll give you an example of like when I did that in my career. My very first sales job, there was an inbound phone loop. How this thing worked was, and this is why taking some time is important. And I've always again, like had like more of a scientific mind. So what I did the first year, so basically what happened is if you picked up a phone, it would skip you and go to the next person, right? So there's like 15 of us in this room.
I remember.
A lot of people remember this. Okay. So here's what I realized. So after my first year at the team, I documented every single inbound sale that came in. When did it come? What time did it come in for the deals that closed? So like, when was the opportunity created? Like, when did the call come in? When was it created, et cetera? I plotted this on a scatter plot. And what I saw is there were gaps that like 11 to 11:30, that kind of pre-lunch, nobody's calling in. They're kind of heads down, finishing before lunch. There's like 2 to 2:30 or something like that. People are back into it. And then there was another one later in the day. So I sat there until 11 and I did all my other shit. And I just said, Tampa Bay Rays, this is Jake. Tampa Bay Rays, this is Jake. Tampa Bay Rays, this is Jake. And all these guys kept making cold calls. I'm like, guys, you're just making calls. I destroyed the inbound loop for 2 weeks, destroyed it. And I showed him the data. I said, guys, and then I crushed the phones in these off hours, right? Crushed them in these in between times. Right. So I still maintain my number of calls. I just was strategic about when I did it because I based it off of data. And people were complaining. They went and told my boss on me. And I'm like, guys, you see what I'm doing? I'm telling you, I showed these people the Excel sheet and they kept doing it. I'm like, you're idiots. You are idiots. I am showing you the data. Why are you still calling right now? Like, why wouldn't it? And so they ended up fixing the phone loop after a month, but
Yeah.
needless to say. But my point is, like, look, take the time to be smart and prioritize your book. Going back to, like, just to bring this home to what I very first talked about, these 3 buckets. Be smart. Where do these people fit, and spend time with the people that are, that are in that first bucket and their industries are doing well, or where you can pivot them to be in that first bucket. So that's kind of, my story, and my, some of the things that have made me successful is I'm always thinking, I'm
Yeah.
not just mindlessly doing.
Yeah, and I think, as sales professionals, I think self-analysis is very, very important. An analysis of the processes that you're involved in. Again, that's a very, very good example of working smarter and not working harder. You're essentially doing both, but you analyze the system, you analyze the data. You even tried to help some of the guys out. They didn't bite, so you just continued on. I think that's a very important point, because in sales we can go into we can go into a sales function, and the sales process isn't necessarily always right. Um, you may have a different and a better way of working. Do not be afraid to explore that. Do not be afraid to step outside the norm. I'm a thinker. I'm also a doer. So I like to think of new ways to make things work. So I would be up there with you, Jake, as well. And I would
Yeah.
agree on your process and what you've said there. So moving on, I want to ask you, what would you change about the sales industry at the moment?
Training, onboarding. I
Okay.
feel like we are not training sales professionals the way that we did. Investing time. I mean, man, there's these legendary programs from, like, Xerox, and
Yeah,
that,
IBM is always against
yeah,
those.
right. These were like 3-month-long programs.
Yeah.
Everyone. So if I could change one thing, and it would be that organizations need to do less focusing on deal coaching and more focus on skill building. And if you increase, there's a great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've been talking about this book a lot lately. I literally just picked this book up for the first time. It's Stephen Covey. It's like an old classic book, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a concept he talks about called production and production capacity. And that when you're coaching or you're acting in the moment, you're producing things. And when you're building skills, you're building capacity to then produce a lot more things. So if you're always in production mindset, this month, now, and you're not increasing production capacity, you're never going to get actually, like, better. It's just more grinding, and it's going to take 3 years to get there instead of, maybe 9 months or 10 months if you just work on increasing the skills of the person.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's up. That's my advice. Focus on skill building,
Yeah,
right?
I
And
would
that's why I think,
say I
yeah.
would say that's totally right, Jake, in terms of the problem that we have at the minute is, like you say, we have lots of people wanting to close deals, businesses. Goodness, if I could tell you how many businesses that I have spoken to personally, they're like, yeah, I want to train people how to close. I want to train people how to close. I was like, how do you know that's the problem? How do you
Well,
know
that's we all want, because that's the outcome they want, right? And that
that's
goes
what they
back to
want
it. And
more
I
of?
say, great, we have a discovery problem. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like, is your pipeline full? Do you know how many people in the pipeline? Are they qualified? Or your sales rep just telling you a lot of shit? Yeah, I've got £180,000 worth of deals when it's actually really 70. Um, so there's lots of variables that go into that, and it's really analyzing the whole process. Um, so thanks for sharing that with us, Jake. In terms of what you're getting up to now, my friend, what does the word look like for Jake Dunlap at the minute?
I mean, look, I'm right now laser focused on what's kind of our back to market strategy. Like, look, we had some things. This is what happened in the economy. It is what it is. And what's the future look like? And I think there's 2 big things. One, and I know you do some of your own, saying sales training, consulting, and I feel like sales has always scaled with full-time people, whereas every other part of the business, what is a finance? Well, they get a CFO service, they get a CPA service, they get experts. What does marketing do? They get a paid media service. They get a PR agency. They get a digital agency. They get a web agency, right?
Hmm.
Nothing like that exists in sales. Sales people is like, let's just hire full time. And guess what? It hasn't worked. So I think we've got to reimagine the way that we scale and bring in, you leverage full time people in the roles that they're most like best to do, sales, right? And then have, we need, and obviously I'm positioning my company, this outbound optimization agencies, and that's what we've been doing,
Yeah.
right? Like we need experts on sales content, right? Like sales enablement. not just a one full-time person who straddles marketing and sales. No, you can drive a lot more value if you have an expert. So I feel like we've got to rethink the way that we're going to scale. That's one. Step two is that LinkedIn has to be a core part of your outbound strategy, and you've got to be purposeful and deliberate about it. And again, I kind of gave some plays away here, but you can't just show up and hope it works out. You need to be deliberate, and it needs to be integrated with your call and email strategy versus I've got my call and email strategy and my LinkedIn strategy. So that's what I'm really passionate about right now as we go back to market. How are we going to rethink outbound, and how are we going to rethink the way that we scale?
Yeah, totally agree with you. I mean, outbound has always been my game. Outbound is something I'm very, very passionate about, and it's always something I end up coaching people when I'm working within a business. And I think, it's strange, Jake. I'd interviewed a guy, a really, really good guy from Northern Ireland here, Noel Brady. He's been in the game for like 43 years, 45 years. And his discussion with us was like, yeah, well, whenever I was prospecting, we had the dial-up phone and we had to dial a company, and
Yeah.
it maybe went through to one phone in the company, and you had to leave a message for the vice president or the
Right,
CEO
right.
to call you back 7 days later. So if you look at where that was, the dial-up phone waiting on 7 days for a potential prospect to call you back from a cold call to where we are now, I think we have to be a bit more grateful for what we have, and I think we have to be a bit more strategic and a bit more process driven. Um, so yeah, totally appreciate that, Jake. Listen, in terms of where people can find you, where's the best place for people to find you, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can get at me, go to jakedunlap.com. I would definitely check that out. It's got links to all my different social media. Obviously, look, I'm very active on LinkedIn talking about sales and marketing advice. So if you're in sales, definitely follow me. It's just Jake Dunlap. And then, look, check out our website, Skaled, Skaled. You can see more of like what the company's up to. But, look, if you go to LinkedIn, if you're in sales, you got to follow me on LinkedIn. Like, you're going to learn a lot. There's a lot of things
Great.
going down there. Like, I'm sharing a lot of content from other people, videos, etc. So, LinkedIn for me. But if you want to,